Hi, I'm Ben Chung, and you're watching Nature with Us. And today I'm going to talk about peppermint and growing peppermint. I got these seeds from Home Depot, I think it was. And these peppermint seeds are quite fine. They're so small, they're like dust. It's so easy to, just lose them. And so I just sprinkle them all around along the top of the soil and scratch them in. You don't have to really bury them at all. They're so small. These were planted maybe about 3 weeks ago, and they're just coming up. It takes a while for them to germinate, and they can be quite small. This is rosemary. It took about, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks to germinate. A little bit faster than peppermint, but the peppermint does take quite a while. This plant was planted about a little over a month ago, and there are a few seeds scattered, and some came up a lot sooner than the others. As you can see when you look closer in, there's a lot of little small seedlings, and then these two came up, these two large ones right here came up much earlier, and so they were growing up into the light and shading out all these other ones. So what I'm going to do now is just separate these so that the smaller seedlings can get light and not get crowded out, and I can keep these two large ones in this pot. I'm going to take these out. And I just grew them under fluorescent lights that I got from Home Depot. So if you just buy ones with the that are they're a bit more, the best quality ones that you can buy. Try to get one that's a bit on the warm side and one a bit on the cool side, and then just put the light. If you're going to do fluorescent lights, just put them about a couple inches away from the seedlings, and that'll be enough to get them started. It's not a very fancy light setup, but it's enough to start seedlings indoors if you're planning on planting them outdoors later on. So I'm just going to take these big ones away from the little ones. Try not to lose the little ones. See, healthy roots, white roots are always a good sign. If they're brown, then that could be a sign of rot. And if there's a plentiful amount of fibrous roots, that's a good sign too. So they look pretty good. I'll put some more soil in here later, and let's get these small ones into this pot. And I want to make sure that I don't put them too deep, because if I do, they're going to have trouble getting all the light that they could. So I want to leave them with a little bit of a lip, but not planted too deeply into the pot. They're so delicate and small, so I want to be careful not to damage them. The process. And another thing about starting seedlings inside of any kind is you always want to make sure that they don't become leggy, and there's a few things that will cause that to happen. The number one thing is not enough light. So if it's possible to use fluorescent lights or grow lights, then that's ideal. If not, try to put it beside a south-facing window. You can put tin foil behind them to reflect the light back on them, to keep them, to get them as much light from every angle as possible. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do is apply, or that you should try and do, is apply heat to the bottom, because there's a lot of soil-borne pathogens, Fusarium, Pythium, and others that can make cause something called damping off, and it can make very weak roots and weak stems to the point where your seedlings will just flop right over, and they'll have a hard time recovering later on if you let it get to that stage, to the point. So applying heat, like getting a heat mat, you can get one from a garden center or order one online. Propagation mat, heat mat, something like that. That will really help to establish your seedlings. They'll come up faster as well. That's what I did with these. The only thing about them is that because of the constant heat, the soil will dry out faster, so you have to make sure you keep on top of the watering. Just make sure you're always watering them pretty much every day. I've had to tend to these every day to make sure they don't dry out. If I miss a day or two, like, they could possibly be dead if I'm using the heat mat. But it's definitely worth it to use one. So I'm just making sure that I don't bury them too deep, but I get the roots securely into the soil. And I'm spacing them out. If there's any more soil here, no more soil there, so I'm just going to tuck them in, trying to get rid of air pockets. Again, they're so fine and delicate. You've seen how small their seeds are, and I'm gonna fill the rest of this with the rest of the soil I have here. And let these guys grow freely. And when the weather gets a little warmer outside, I can plant them outside in a pot, because mint tend to be a little invasive. They get their roots, they'll have stolons and invade all kinds of other spaces that you might not want them to. So I'll keep them in pots. And that's it. So that's growing peppermint, starting them indoors. And hope you liked it. Thanks for watching.